People are losing their businesses that they worked their entire lives for.
Without further ado, Crystal Tini. Crystal, how are you?
Hi there. I'm as well as I can be under the circumstances.
So we just watched a little clip of the video that went viral. I mean, had 25,000 shares alone, not to mention how many people actually watched it.
Yeah.
When did you first realize something was wrong? When things just weren't right? When did you actually have this this light bulb moment?
The very beginning. The light bulb went off at the very beginning. When they told us that we had to quarantine, I mean, that automatically was just like, something's not right. The whole world is being shut down. There are not dead people laying all over the streets to the point where it's like, okay, you guys need to be in your house. We have to figure this out. It's like, no, none of this is happening. And we've just lived through too many false flag events to believe this one all of a sudden. I'm not going to all of a sudden be a believer of this crap. I think because in my whole life, I've always been have a leader mentality and never followed anything, doing anything that I was told. I would always go against the grain. And I was rebellious in my whole life. So when someone's telling me something and no one is asking questions, that is alarming to me. Well, just the fact that people are not able to provide for their family, the fact that people are trying to open their business, quote unquote, illegally, and they're being arrested or fined money to provide for their family. So once people become homeless, then who cares for them? Propaganda is real, it's alive, and it's well, because it's continuing to divide us. I mean, every time there's a crisis, there is one far left-leaning side and one far right-leaning side. And it's like, there's not really a middle ground anymore. And it's just a lot of hatred and division. And they do a very good job, the media, of spinning that. So that is, it's very difficult for people that are indoctrinated. There's just too many of them. I can't say so many. I could say too many, because that is the biggest problem. And that is what they have on their side, are the indoctrinated people that are going to listen to the Faucis and the Burks, tell them complete and utter BS, and they're going to go along with it. And then it makes the rest of us suffer. And it makes people say, well, why aren't you wearing a mask? Why are you not following the rules? Instead, when you can easily look up how it will affect you in the opposite way, how it will impact your health to wear a mask, to not breathe fresh oxygen all day long, when you're in the car by yourself, when you're walking down the street, when you're jumping rope outside in 95-degree weather. There
are people in their cars by themselves wearing masks. And I think we lose the logic of the O2, CO2 reaction that we have and transaction we have. We have to have so much CO2. So when you have a mask on, you're breathing more of your own virus, more of your own CO2, which you don't need. You got to expel that, and you bring in less of your O2 that you need.
Yeah.
So you understand the psychology, how people get caught into that, but I also understand the frustration. So what are you doing outside of, have you changed your belief system? Do you still have compassion for those folks who are not woke up?
Well, every time I walk down the street, like I just got back to LA recently, and I walk down the street with my sister and our dog, and I just see people with masks on. They're running, they're walking alone, they're walking with someone else. And my sister, I always say, I'm so angry. My sister's like, you have to have more compassion for these people. And I'm like, I can't understand people that don't ask questions, people that will just go along with this. And, obviously you're uncomfortable. So now you're uncomfortable all day because you're walking around with a mask on your face. You're hot. You're moving it around. You can't breathe. You might be having more anxiety because you're wearing a mask. And it's like, but everyone's uncomfortable wearing these masks, but no one will stop and ask the question, why are we doing this? And they're only listening to what they're hearing instead of actually looking into things. And why are they not asking the questions of, okay, so you're telling us to stay at home. What do we do when we stay at home? They're telling us to clean everything, that there's no germs. And our bodies and our immune system needs those things so that we are immune to other things. So it's not even like you have to read this science book to figure this out. Like some of it's common sense and other things are just like a simple search. They'd be like, okay, yeah, this doesn't make sense for my body and for my immunity. And it's like, why are the news media not telling us, hey, this is what you need to be doing. You need to be building your immune system with these remedies, whether it's...
Have you seen the Del Bigtree video where I want to play real quick here about the top 3 doctors, Dr. Oz, Dr. Drew, and Dr. Phil, were prior to being handled, they came out and they were saying stuff what you're saying right now. But then I want to play a part of after whoever got their hands on them, I want you to hear what they had to say afterwards. So, and we'll talk about that for a minute. Suchi, can you play that video?
They sat on televisions around the world, really. This is what they had to say.
How much damage is the media causing now the way they're covering us?
Essentially, the entire problem we're having is due to panic, not the virus.
We need our mojo back. Let's start with things that are really critical to the nation where we think we might be able to open without getting into a lot of trouble.
I can't show you an X-ray of depression. I can't show you an X-ray of anxiety. But the fact of the matter is, the longer this lockdown goes on, the more vulnerable people get. And it's like there's a tipping point. There's a point at which people start having enough problems in lockdown that it will actually create more destruction and actually more death across time than the actual virus will itself.
This corona thing doesn't worry me at all.
It is a press-induced panic. I am angry about it. It is the flu. It's milder than we thought. The fatality rate is going to drop as we identify more cases. The entirety of the problem now is that people are being pushed into bankruptcy.
I tell you, schools are a very appetizing opportunity. I just saw a nice piece in the Lancet arguing that the opening of schools may only cost us 2 to 3% in terms of total mortality. And, you know, that's any life is a life lost. But to get every child back into a school where they're safely being educated, being fed, and making the most out of their lives with a theoretical risk in the backside, it might be a trade-off some folks would consider. We need to get industry back, supply lines. I mean, things that we can do without putting the nation at risk.
Poverty line is getting such that more and more people are going to fall below that because the economy is crashing around us. And they're doing that because people are dying from the coronavirus. I get that. But look, the fact of the matter is we have people dying. 45,000 people a year die from automobile accidents, 480,000 from cigarettes, 360,000 a year from swimming pools. But we don't shut the country down for that, but yet we're doing it for this, and the fallout is going to last for years because people's lives are being destroyed.
And we need to calm down. It's here, it's mild, and the press needs to shut up. It's really getting to be a problem.
So, Crystal, you heard these are the top TV doctors, right? Sounds reasonable, the responses, their anger, their frustration, right? No problem. Well, listen to what they had to say the next day after they came out and said this, okay? And I want you to kind of weigh in on that. All right, Suchi, when you're ready, let's play that. This is their apology.
Had those statements out there by the 3 top TV doctors in the world. Here's how they responded.
My early comments about equating coronavirus with influenza were wrong. They were incorrect. I was part of a chorus that was saying that, and we were wrong. And I want to apologize for that. I wish I got it right, but I got it wrong. What I did not get wrong was every time I took a position, I always said, make sure you listen to Dr. Fauci, because he is the person we must look to.
I've realized my comments on risks around opening schools have confused and upset people, which was never my intention. I misspoke. As a heart surgeon, I spent my career fighting to save lives in the operating room by minimizing risks. At the same time, I'm being asked constantly, how will we be able to get people back to their normal lives? To do that, one of the important steps will be figuring out how do we get our children safely back to school.
I've gotten a lot of tongues wagging by comments I made last night on Laura Ingram's show, so I thought I would follow up on that. Robin and I 100% support the CDC guidelines of quarantine and have been following them, sheltering at home and maintaining social distancing guidelines. I've said 100% I support that we shut the country down to protect what is perhaps a small percentage of those for whom this virus is most dangerous. Listen to your state governors, as I'm going to do, that you abide by their rules to stay at home until we are all happily united. If I offended people's sensibilities last night with my...
All right, so, Crystal, How do you feel about what you just heard?
Are you trying to make my blood pressure rise?
I mean, these are the top 3 TV doctors in the world, or, definitely in America. Just within a 24-hour period, they contradicted themselves completely. What they were saying do you think that could wake people up, or how do you feel? I mean, what comes to your mind when you hear these doctors that people admire and look up to every day?
Well, that's the thing. This is how easily led people are. So they'll listen to what they have to say, and they'll be on board with them. And then the next day, they'll tell them some bullshit like that, and then they'll say, "Yeah, you're right. We have to follow the guidelines." Like that's the biggest problem that I have is all of the people that will listen to that, go along with it, and then as soon as someone changes their story, they'll also go along with that, and they don't ask questions.
And looking at reality, what it is, as you're one of the hopefully will be many who's gone down the rabbit hole. It seems like wherever you go, 5G, which is the new Internet of Things, is a conversation that needs to be had, because supposedly many of these truthers and people are seeing what's coming on down the road. 5G is going to be the next pandemic in reference to the flu-like symptoms that we're seeing with COVID. So what have you discovered with the 5G agenda?
Oh, God, this is really a deep rabbit hole here.
Yes.
And I always sink into my chair when people ask me about 5G, and I'm just like, because there's so much around it that people don't know or not aware of. They are disguising it as faster internet, download a whole movie in 2 seconds kind of thing. And it's like, people don't look beyond that. And that's what makes me the most furious, is because there is so much behind it. It's very scary. What I've discovered, while everybody's quarantined in their house, like I was driving up and down highways and all this other stuff, and we knew that these 5G towers, lamps, whatever you want to call them,
LED
were
lamps,
being put up.
Yep.
And to my horror, that was truth. So it's like, okay, so this whole pandemic happens, and simultaneously they're just throwing up these towers and lamps
All across America, in schools, in public areas, buses. Now everyone is 5G.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
Exactly. So while this is all happening, while we are conveniently in our homes, not having a clue what's happening outside of our homes, they are putting up these death towers. And, I've looked so far into this, and a lot of people will just say you're a conspiracy theorist and all this other stuff. And there are scientists around the world that were saying to halt the rollout of 5G.
Certain countries are stopping it.
They're banning it. In Switzerland, I believe it was Switzerland, they did a testing. And I don't know if this was several years ago or when it was exactly, that they put up 2 5G towers and almost 400 birds fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
And all the bees that were dying and all this stuff. And, how there's lamps next to a tree, and one side of the tree is completely dead and the other side of the tree is flourishing.
Yes.
So there are so many things that we should be worried and alarmed about. And the symptoms that it causes are things that people might not recognize right away. And they say that over exposure to the radiation that 5G is giving off will have things that are symptoms very similar to the coronavirus. So whether you're getting sick from this 5G now, or if there is this actual virus, who is going to make that determination? How are people going to know the difference? And that's the scary part. If once people do go back out into society, if there's a whole other outbreak, who's going to know the difference or know enough information about 5G to know if it is from being overexposed to radiation or if it is in fact from this coronavirus?
That's beautifully stated. And it's a question that not only needs to be pondered, but needs to be taken seriously by everyone out there right now. Because I would say if the same people that we're asking this question to are the same ones who are watching Fox News, watching MSNBC, CNN every day and taking what they're saying as religion, they'll be the ones who will say, yes, we told you so. Everyone needs to go back in lockdown, and we need to have draconian laws to save our lives, because now children are dropping dead. Now people are dropping dead all over the place.
Exactly.
And I do believe that was the effect that happened in Wuhan, which I think in time will come out. They lit up 5G at the same time, either released this bioweapon or whatever it may be, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot more people dropping dead in Wuhan.
And there were people dropping dead in the street, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Like a diamond in the sky, the cardio up like a bald eagle.